Good afternoon, guys.
Good afternoon.
You can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Good afternoon. Can hear you. How are you?
Good afternoon.
Good evening, all. Thank you.
Good evening. Can hear you.
So today's session is about emergency preparedness and business continuity. It is the second topic out of 11 topics that we cover in the module. And in a nutshell, it talks about emergency preparedness and the business continuity. So what does that mean? It means that as a facility manager, we are in charge of a facility. And we are in charge of the business continuity of the facility. If you remember the definition of facility management, it's the core of it is to ensure the operation of the built structure, okay, the built environment. So to ensure the operation of the built environment, we have to be ready for emergencies. We have to be ready to continue the operation of the business once we have an emergency. What kind of emergencies can happen inside a building? Can someone tell me?
Fire, sir.
Yes, hello.
Yeah, fire is one of them for sure.
Rain, flooding.
Earthquakes.
Fire, earthquakes, volcanoes, this kind of
Flooding due to rain.
Yeah, that's a lot. That happens a lot in Qatar.
Medical emergencies.
Yeah, medical emergencies. So emergencies can be natural or they can be man-made. So for example, another emergency can have riots. You can have security breach that affects imagine that you are managing a hospital and then there's a riot in the region, or you're managing a mall, and how do you continue the operations of the hospital in such an environment? So this module discusses the emergency preparedness, what actions can we take, what measures should we take, the different things that can be utilized to offset or mitigate the effects of emergencies. Emergency and uncertainty is an integral part of operations, whatever you're doing, whether you're managing a building, you're managing an oil and gas field, you're managing a factory. Processes by nature are not 100%, how do I say, reliable. That's why you have insurance companies, and that's why you have risk management. So this module, let us start with it. So an overview, as I mentioned, emergency preparedness is ensuring that you are safe before, during, and after a natural disaster or emergency that possesses an immediate risk to the environment, property, or life. So emergency preparedness is that you are safe, and first thing is safety. And by the way, when we are covering this module, the number one thing of importance is more important than the business itself is always human life. And this is something that we always, those of you who operate sites or who have this kind of exposure, they know that the number one priority is a human life. Nothing is more dear than human life, and the number one priority before even you think about operations. So if there's an imminent threat to human life, this supersedes everything else. It supersedes any monetary value or things like that. That's why you find companies taking measures, even if they have to pay financially for it. It's always a human safety as a number one. And we have the duty, the ethical duty as managers to abide by this, to consider a human life way more valuable than financial gain. Business continuity is an ability. So the emergency preparedness, we said that you are ready for an emergency, whereas the business continuity is the ability of the organization to maintain its essential function. This definition, essential function, is one of the maybe new definitions to you here, and this is key in this module. So we call it the mission essential function. So each business, depending on its nature, has an essential function. What does an essential function mean? It means the purpose for why it's built. A school is built so that you can have a safe, clean environment and noise-free environment to teach students. So this is the mission essential function of a school. The mission essential function of an airport is the ability to process passengers in a proper manner, in a safe way, that complying with the regulations of the entry and exit from the country. The mission essential function of a hospital is to provide a clean, safe environment for treatment of patients. So when we say that the business continuity is to maintain its essential function, we're not talking about 100% completion, we're talking about essential function. How does that differ? For example, if I have a flood, and we have seen flooding happening in facilities such as Qatar Foundation and other areas. So ensuring the business continuity, it means that we go back to operation as quickly as possible, and maybe we barricade the area where we have, how do I say, leakages. So we can continue our mission essential function, and we will work on restoration of the full operation of the facility. Almost 1 year ago, for example, a perfect example for this, in Saudi Arabia, there was one missile that was shot from Yemen and hit an airport. And you found that within hours, they resumed the mission essential function of the airport. They went, barricaded the area, cleaned the rubble, okay, and shifted the flow of people, and they went operational. So in this case, they were prepared for an emergency. They maintained the mission essential function of the airport, and they continued their operations. So that's what we're gonna cover, how you can plan, how can you anticipate this, how do you optimize this to go back on track as fast as possible. So business continuity is the ability to maintain a mission essential function before, during, and after the disaster or incidents, and the capacity to return to its normal operations in a relatively short period of time. We mentioned the flooding. Those of you who have been for several years in Doha will see how the whole country has improved its emergency preparedness. In Ashghal, for example, they have a special unit, and every time the weather changes and there is rainy season, they have deployed a task force. So previously what used to happen, they used to wait for the streets to flood, and then they start calling the tankers to remove this. Now they are being much more proactive. Now, even when the rain comes, they're going, before the rain comes, they are checking the drainages, they are checking the flow of water, they're checking even certain facilities such as malls to go and have a look at their emergency water drainage facilities and so on. Also, they are keeping people on standby rather than waiting for the rain to happen and then calling people and deploying them. Now they're keeping them on standby. They have purchased and procured some water pumps and so on. So the better you are prepared, the faster you can resume back your operations. And as a facility manager, you are in charge of securing the operations of your facility. So that's why this module is important. So the purpose of emergency preparedness, okay, as I mentioned, it's definitely important and it's worth the investment. Okay, why it's worth the investment? Because if you're shut for a longer period, your company is gonna lose more money. So better to be anticipative of this. So if you are prepared, you can protect your organizational assets and especially one's life. The organization's obligation is to provide a satisfactory product and services, to demonstrate social responsibility, to establish a mutually beneficial relationship with providers, to ensure, this is a very important thing, and that's why we were mentioning, is that to ensure that the building occupants are safe and secure. This is one, and you know that there is an ethical liability, there is also a legal liability. You know that you can take someone to court. Maybe here the litigation is not as common, but in the States, even if you are hurt on the walkway or the driveway of someone because they didn't shovel the snow, you can take them to court and sue them. So there is a liability. If someone is visiting your mall, someone is visiting your hospital, and they are hurt by something because you didn't take the necessary measures, you are legally liable, and you are liable to provide some kind of, that's why people keep insurances, they keep third-party liability insurance and so on. And so the organization obligation also is not to cause a nuisance to the public or its neighbors, prevent pollution and protect the environment, to protect its organizational assets, to provide the necessary information to first responders to perform their duties and responsibilities. So I always highlight the new things and important things that you need to take care of. Yeah, Abdul Rahman, come in. Tell me.
Excuse me, I have one question. Ensuring the building occupants are safe and secured.
Yes.
This is actually the security company, because there is security company doing that. And what is the engagement of facility management for that safe and secure? So what's the other role of the security company?
Security goes under facility management, Ahmed.
Yes, you're right, sir.
I mean, there is companies for security, correct? What is the role?
It goes on, this is kind of service, the service of security is something that goes under facility
management. Excuse me, so you mean that if I am a facility manager and there is security company, this under me also, I should manage it?
It depends on the, this thing for facility management, there are hard services and there are soft services.
Okay.
Hard services are like MEP maintenance services, civil maintenance services, electrical power maintenance services, elevator maintenance services, ELV system maintenance services. These are the hard services. Soft services include security, custodial service, means cleaning of the building. It includes gardening. It includes providing valet service. It includes providing cafeteria services in some companies. All of this falls under facility management. Facility management is not just the maintenance of electrical and mechanical components.
This is my perspective. Yeah. My point of view is that facility management only maintenance and operation for the building.
That's why you're taking this course, right?
Now you enlarge my mind that no, it's not only this, also cleaning, landscape irrigation system, also like that.
Yes, the whole thing, all of the services that happen in the building, and we're gonna be detailing these in a different module.
Yeah,
but
this, like this, we need Superman. Yeah, this is too much for a facility manager to do all of these things like that, to be in his headache. In his topic, I think that anyway,
Abdul Rahman, it's because that you are new to this business, but I'm sure we have many superheroes with us who are managing the whole thing already. It's not a big deal once you get used to it.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So we continue. So the safety and security is something that's very important, and it's a primary role. And then we say that provide the necessary information. As I say, I always highlight the key terms and words. So first responders. What are first responders? First responders are the people who respond to the emergency first. They're usually, they differ from they are 911 in the US. They are 999 in Qatar. In Qatar, if you have an emergency, you call 999. You will have the Faz'a, you will have the police, you'll have the fire department, and they have a certain mechanism and they will deploy the fastest people. You have Hamad. So first responders, this is the definition, and your obligation as a facility manager is to coordinate with first responders. Let's say you have a fire, okay? You are not the most qualified to handle fire. Your job is to handle the fire till the first responders come. And when the first responders come, they are the ones who are in charge. They are better equipped, better trained than you. Then you hand over and you provide support for them to manage their task. Benefits of emergency preparedness and business continuity. So again, this is not a luxury. This is something that can, okay, it depends on the company and its budget and how much liability you have. Some companies will have bigger budgets. So if you're talking like, let's say, an oil and gas company such as QP or ExxonMobil, they will have a huge budget to mitigate all these risks, because for them, the interruption for 1 day, 2 days, or 10 days is catastrophic on their operations. The liabilities are too huge. So that's why they invest heavily in this, okay? But again, even for other companies, it pays to have emergency preparedness. You have people here like Vodafone or Ooredoo. Again, they're prepared for emergencies. They're prepared for redundancy in case they have a shutdown in their system. See, the whole telecommunication network in Qatar is under them. They cannot just be waiting for chance to happen. They have always risk management. They have scenarios how to deal with things, okay? So the benefits of having emergency preparedness, you are more proactive. What does proactive mean? It means that you are anticipating the problem before it happens. You are preparing for it. An advantage will be discover unnecessary process redundancy. So you will come and tell me, how does the process relate to emergency preparedness? We will see that when we are preparing to mitigate the risks, we study the processes of operation within the organization. When we study something, we start improving on it. That's why those of you who are familiar with the ISO process, the ISO process starts by mapping the process. Let's say, how do you procure an item? Okay, we raise a material requests. Okay, the material request goes to procurement. The procurement solicits 3 quotations. They get it. Then it goes to the engineer for approval, then for finance for approval, and so on. So once you look at the process and study a process, you will be able to see if there are loopholes in it. And maybe sometimes you are doing unnecessary tasks and you are not monitoring how long it takes for you to complete this. Enhanced client confidence. A proactive organization makes the client feel that they are better equipped to handle this. Improve legal compliance and prevent court-related issues. So this is what I talked earlier. When you are making sure that you are taking all the measures needed. For example, you know how much damaging it is if you are the facility management of a game park for children and you have an accident where one of the kids get hurt or that can be the death of your business forever. So the risk is very high, both financially, morally, and legally, okay? A perfect example that happened here on what an emergency can do and lack of preparedness is the Villaggio fire. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but several years back, there was a fire in Villaggio, and in that fire, 13 kids, I think, unfortunately died, and that led to the shutdown of the Villaggio, and for months on end, led to legal cases and a lot. And all of this could have been prevented had there been proper safety regulations. That's why the government came and replaced all the safety regulations for all nurseries in Qatar based on that incident. Increase staff morale. When you feel that your organization is doing whatever they can to ensure your safety, you will definitely be having a better confidence in your company. Lower insurance premiums. When you show insurance companies that you are taking all the mitigations, you are likely to get less cost for your insurance. An insurance company works on risk. So the lower the risk, the cheaper the product, okay? Minimize business revenue losses. This is what I said, is that rather than you shutting down for a month, maybe you shut down for 1 day, or maybe you don't even shut down altogether. More satisfied stakeholders. Of course, all your stakeholders will be happy when you are minimizing the losses, minimizing the risk. Promoting team spirit through cross-functional collaboration. Protection of assets from damage. This is again an important thing. So if I'm prepared for a flood, I've seen many companies lose servers that cost hundreds of thousands of riyal during the raining season. And so a simple thing such as leakage from the roof can destroy equipment worth hundreds of thousands of riyal. So again, you will be protecting your assets when you are being proactive. Uninterrupted customer service and business operations. The 4 phases of emergency. So we have something that we can do before the accident. We have something that we can do during the accident, and we have something to do after the accident. Before the accident, what we can do is that we can mitigate. Mitigate, it means reduce the impact of the things. Yani we take insurance, we will cover those as we move ahead. You can take insurance, you can, let's say, to reduce the risk of having a power shutdown, you go and buy another genset and you put it on standby. This way you are mitigating the risks. And you prepare, you take the actions ahead of time, you prepare an evacuation plan. A typical example, which is regulated here in Qatar for emergency preparedness, which many of you will be familiar with, is the Qatar Civil Defense. The Qatar Civil Defense is forcing everyone to be prepared for a fire emergency. How? It starts from the design itself. The design should take consideration when you have a fire, how the building will operate. Then they are taking, in terms of procedure, they mentioned that you have to have charts, you have to have an escalation chart and so on. And then they go and test the system continuously. So this is just one system. Again, those of you who are familiar with WQOD, the regulation regarding gas systems, they have the same thing as well. Their design should be compliant with NFPA 54 and 58. The installation should be compliant. They come and test the system every 3 months. So they're even more strict than the Qatar Civil Defense. So you can mitigate and prepare ahead of time. During the emergency, the only thing you can do is to respond. But if you are already prepared and have everything lined down, you are much more likely to succeed. So if you are in a building and there is fire, and if you have already done fire drills and prepared for evacuation for the building, you are much more likely to achieve a faster evacuation than if you haven't prepared. And let's say when you go and train your people as fire wardens, this is part of the preparation, and that makes your response better. And then after, what you do is that you recover. You go back and rebuild from an emergency, and then again you go and see what could have been done earlier. Maybe we change the procedure of something. 4 phases of emergency. So first of all, we have the planning. So this will happen, the planning. And this is a graph which shows the plan deployment versus the organizational involvement. Okay. The organization in general, this is we are preparing initially, and then we have a disaster. In the emergency response, everyone will be on their toes. Everyone will be contributing. Imagine a fire inside a hospital. The nurses, the facility management, the management, the doctors, everyone will be involved. Okay, this is the first phase. But after the emergency means the imminent threat. Okay, after, let's say, they turn off the fire, there will be a crisis management team, crisis management phase. The crisis management is you go and assess what's the situation, how to control the situation, and how we can go back into restoring the things. And then you see we go into the restoration and recovery. It can take a very long time to recover 100%. Okay, but this graph is showing to show that the organizational involvement is the highest in emergency response. Another thing, the graph doesn't show that the highest involvement of management is in crisis management. Senior management will be highly involved in crisis management. In the emergency response, usually there are the people who are at site. Let's say, as I said, you have a hospital. Let's say you are a hospital which has having 10 branches in the country. Hamad Hospital, let's say. You have a fire in one of the public healthcare facilities. The emergency response and the involvement will be directly from the people on that specific unit. Let's say the one in Al-Sad. People will be directly involved in it. And then to control the situation, to control the media, to clarify to the media, the crisis management. Who will take care of crisis management and who will be highly involved in it? It will be the central management Hamad Hospital, not the people who are only on site. So this is something important to remember. So if we look at these 4 phases, the first phase is that the emergency preparedness, business continuity, risk management planning. So here in this phase, we create a plan with a cross-functional team and we do training exercises. We anticipate the occasional involvement of occupants and senior management. Emergency response, during the emergency response, you deploy the plan. You deploy the plan that you developed in the first phase with adequate resources and evacuate the occupants as necessary. Crisis management, you manage the effect of the incident. The identified critical process is resumed through the business operation and returning to normal at the earliest. So in the crisis management, you assess the damages, you limit the effects of the, and let's say when you are having fire inside a hospital, you will not really be caring about continuing your service to the patients. Your main goal will be to secure the safety, everyone on the team or in the as a patient. And then when everything is under control, the fire is off, then you start thinking, okay, is the building safe for us to return to? Maybe only one part of the building is damaged and I need to do crisis management. To resume my mission essential function, maybe I need to shut down one unit, okay, and shift whoever was there to other areas. Maybe get some equipment, additional equipment, and so on. Restoration and recovery, this is the last phase where you return 100% to operation after restoring or replacing an asset. You can see, for example, the restoration and recovery can take months, if not sometimes years. So you have a hotel and then you had a fire in it. What you do is that in the emergency response, you go and control the situation, you turn off the fire. Crisis management, you see how to barricade the area so that you can resume your operations. Restoration and recovery, you see maybe you need to order, let's say your chillers, one of them was burnt off. You need to buy it and you order it and then it comes. It can take months. Planning, so the planning, yes.
Yes, one question, please. Again, the difference between the risk management and crisis management. Again, quickly.
Risk management. Crisis management is when you are having the crisis itself. You are
during the
handling it.
crisis.
Yes. The risk management, you can do risk management now. You work in construction, Ammar.
Yeah.
Yeah, you work in construction. See, when you do a job hazard analysis, what's that?
I am working in facility management, not in construction. So I just want to be clear. Risk management, does this mean like to set a plan or set a workflow for the crisis, or what exactly?
Yes. This is the phases. Again, we go back to the phases, the 4 phases which we talked about. These 4 phases, okay? Initially, or here, these 4 spaces. Here you plan. Initially, you plan, okay? Let me just delete all of this. Clear. I don't know how you can clear. Okay. Here you plan, okay? You do the risk management planning, okay? Here you do the planning. Maybe you never have an incident, but you keep the plan, right?
No, you just have a plan. Yes.
Yes. You maybe
prevention. It's prevention.
Yes, you are anticipate. It's like you buy an insurance policy for your car, right? To mitigate the risk.
Okay.
Maybe you will run 2-3 years and hopefully 10 years, 20 years without an accident, but you still buy it.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the risk management planning. Crisis management is after an incident has happened.
Okay, so for the risk management, it can be included like for preparation. It should be included like fire drills or some kind of mock, right?
Yes. If you wait a little bit, you will see it covered in the next slides. And if you still have problems, you can look into it. Okay.
Okay.
So planning involves. Please lower your hand when you finish. Okay, so planning involves the risk to avoid, reduce, or prevent the consequences. Okay, and in the planning, you get the required resources and training exercises. So that's why, like the resources, as I said, during the water floods, many companies now are keeping dewatering pumps available on sites. Let's say if you have an hospital, you keep 2-3 dewatering pumps. You are preparing for an emergency. You may never use them, okay? And then you define the mission essential process that needs to be immediately restored and recovered after the incident or emergency. This is what I mentioned, the airport thing. What missions are essential and what are secondary? An airport has a cafeteria and has restaurants, right? You see now, even in the crisis of COVID-19, these are not mission essential functions. An airport can still be operational and does its mission essential function even without its restaurants running, even without the duty-free running, okay? So this is what you need to identify, which areas to focus your attention on when you are restoring the operations. So if you have a fire in the airport, okay, what are the critical areas? Maybe immigration is number one, baggage control is number one, and things like that, okay? So restoration and recovery. When we are restoring and recovering, we're doing a disaster recovery. First of all, we're recovering the disaster itself. Then we are doing a business recovery. So we are back to operation, and assets recovery. If you have some damaged assets, you're trying to replace them. There are 8 principles of emergency management. An emergency management plan should be comprehensive, progressive, risk-driven, collaborative, integrated, coordinated, flexible, and professional. What does that mean? Comprehensive means that you are considering all potential hazards, impact phases, and stakeholders. Progressives means that it's not a static thing. It means that future disaster, for example, now due to COVID-19, if I'm doing risk management for a company, many companies will start taking this pandemic thing as part of their disaster management, okay? So it's progressive. It's not a static thing. It's a continuously improving thing. Risk-driven. This is what we will see always, that our plans start with the risk. What does that mean? I am having 3 facilities. One facility is in Japan. Another facility is in Qatar. Another facility is in Arizona. Okay, the risks to these facilities are different. In Japan, for example, I'm having a much higher earthquake risk. In Qatar, I don't have that risk. So we start our emergency. So I cannot deploy one plan equal for all. In Arizona, there is a hurricane risk. So again, it takes a different set of preparedness. So emergency management starts with the risk itself, okay? Collaborative, EPBS, emergency preparedness, business continuity, not BS, BC. This is Nuruddin, you asked about it. So it's the emergency preparedness and business continuity, EPBC, okay? Collaborative, it means that it's not a one-way thing. There are many stakeholders that need to be involved. So for example, that's why the Qatar Civil Defense, they come and inspect your facilities because they understand the facilities early on, because tomorrow if there's a fire, they should have the drawings. They should make sure that the system is operational as per standards and so on. So they are involved in the process. Integrated, so ensuring the highest possible degree of effort unity among the community and government institutions, coordinated across the activities of all relevant stakeholders. Flexible. What does flexible mean? you cannot predict 100% how a scenario will be panning out. So there's a famous saying that says, no war has been won according to plan, but no war has been won without a plan. So it means that you need to plan, yes, but you need to have enough flexibility to deviate as you move along. So you don't know, like, you're going to have a fire and it will be in this building. You cannot control that. So that's why you have to be flexible in the way you handle this. Professional, so it means that it's a science and knowledge-based approach based on continuous improvement, education, experience, and training, and so on. There are priorities on responding to a crisis, okay? Number one is physically and mentally safeguard the building occupants. So as I said, human life comes as a number one. Then you need to take consideration of the reputation of the company. So again, it's a very important thing, the reputation of the company. Let's say, as I said, let's say you have a theme park and you cannot really have your reputation tarnished due to a breaking, even if no one gets injured. And you hear that, okay, the slides on this collapsed once, okay? You will hit your reputation, you will kill your business, okay? Normalizing the mission essential process, it means that you are, as I said, as an airport, you need to focus on the important things, how to operate. As a hotel, you have other priorities and so on. Then resuming normal business operations as soon as possible. So when developing risk management programs, again, this thing, you will see always alignment with strategy. Okay? This is, again, a concept as per the IFMA philosophy is always repeated. Whatever you do in your business, whether you are managing procurement, whether you are managing facilities, whether you're preparing for emergencies, you need to understand what's your organizational strategy. What does that mean? Organizational strategy, let's say for Google, is different than it is from another competitor. Let me give it another way. Here you have in Qatar two very prominent brands, let's say for real estate companies. You have Al Fardan, let's say, and you have Isdan. Al Fardan promotes luxury, promotes I don't know, lux and high end. Isdan promotes affordability. So the way you handle these things, open the mic. Yes, Sheikh, you want to talk or? Okay, so.
Yes. I just wanted to clarify, actually, my mic was not working during the last slide. I wanted to know the business continuity plan that we discussed. Say if the example is for a hospital, so
we cannot,
the manager of hospital facility, so we need to.
We cannot hear you, Sheikh. Sheikh.
Hello. Is
yeah.
it better?
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell
yes,
me.
Sir, I wanted to know, as a facility manager of a hospital facility, a hospital building, for business continuity plan, we have to consider only our MEP services in that plan, or see the facility will actually respond in case of crisis that includes medical services also. So our plan should only see our part as in MEP services or whole operation.
That's why
to make
that's why you do it in coordination with other parts. In the end, you're a facility manager. You are serving the hospital. You are providing the necessary environment so that they can do their core business. The core business is to treat the people. So that's why you do your part, but you do it in coordination with the medical team. Okay?
So you mean to say a BCP plan of hospital will be a big master plan with everything all in one place. It will not be separate for FM services.
You will have one for FM, but it can be part of a bigger thing. So that's why, like business operations, serious companies, like as you said, they can be even one for the medical team, how to prepare. But for us, we will be looking into the facility itself. And that's why we said coordination, the 8 principles which we mentioned. A lot of them talk about coordination, talk about integration. You are not an island. In the end, your job as a facility manager is to provide the facility necessary for the business to conduct its services. Okay?
Core operations.
Yes. Attitude towards things to consider, alignment with the organizational strategy. So the strategy, as I say, is important, and you need to always be aligned with the organization strategy. So let's say you are running Vodafone. Vodafone is promising its people with lack of interruption of its service. Okay, so you as a facility manager, maybe you need to do much more redundancy. Whereas if you are just a cheap service provider, maybe you think that, no, if I have to increase this investment in these, then I have to increase the price for my clients. Or maybe rather than having 100%, we will see some cases now as we move along, how you can have 100% redundancy, okay, or you can have a 50% redundancy, or even 25% redundancy. So it depends on the business, the nature of it, how critical it is, and what funds are available, and so on. Okay. Familiarity with the importance and benefits of the emergency preparedness and business continuity, the organization's core mission, overcome the possible resistance. Yes.
Sorry, the redundancy to 25% and.
Sorry? Guys, wait. Okay, please, whenever you want to this better, maybe you start raising your hands, guys, and then I will address. So go ahead, Sheikh, please tell me.
Sorry, yeah. I just wanted to know, when we say 100% redundancy, what does it implies? Everything is, we have a backup for everything.
I am coming to that. Not in everything you can do 100% redundancy. I'm coming to that. I told you down the line, I will come into this. These are like the emergency hot sites which we are talking about. So your tolerance for risk depends on your business. If you are a hospital, okay, for example, power is very important for you. Even if you are staying in a country such as Qatar, where the power interruption is minimal, you find all the hospitals, they have emergency power available on site. Why? Because if you have a shutdown in power, some patients will die. If someone is on a breathalyzer and an emergency machine, you cannot have a power shutdown. So the nature of the business expect you in terms of power, for example, to have a full redundancy. I have done fuel systems for military bases, for example. Okay, they wanted to have 72 hours of 100% redundancy across the base, because the military base has to have emergency preparedness at a higher level than, let's say, a hotel, or let's say an office building. The criticality of it is different. So that's why we said that the emergency preparedness starts with the risk that's inherent in the country, the risk on your business, and so on. Okay. So we continue. Realistic risk appetite. So when you are considering the risk management, again, we will see how it happens, and maybe we are jumping a little bit. There is always the risk. The level of risk that we want to absorb, you cannot cover 100% the risk. Okay, when you are going and driving your car, okay, you put an insurance on the car, you put your seat belt, you buy a reliable, safe car, okay, you do the maintenance on time, and still there's a chance that you make an accident and get injured. Okay, so you cannot cover 100%, but what you are doing is that you are putting one layer after one layer after one layer, trying to protect yourself. So the emergency preparedness, this again, Ammar, I think you asked about this, or Ahmad, I don't remember. So what we say is that first we evaluate manage risk. Okay, first we manage risk. First we identify the risk. What are the risks? Let's say, as I said, if I'm operating in Oklahoma or I'm operating on the east coast of the states, it's different. If I'm operating in Japan, it's different. So I manage the risks. I identify the risks. I create a risk management plan. Okay, and then I develop the plan. Okay, after I identified the risks, for each one, I develop a plan. I develop an emergency response plan and a business continuity plan. So the emergency response plan, I utilize it at the moment of emergency. At the same time, I can invoke after, this is part of the crisis management, business continuity plan. How will I resume my operations? Then I do train, test, and or drill. Okay. If there is no emergency, maybe this emergency will not come. Okay, this is the point. Maybe that I am lucky and there is emergency will not happen. All of the buildings in Qatar are prepared for fire breaking. Okay, all. How much fires do you have in your building? Maybe you will have a building running for 100 years, not with a single fire. But still, you make the plans, you train and test and drill, and based on the test and drill results, you learn. For example, you are in charge of a building for Wuqud or for Wuqud building in West Bay. You do some drill exercises for the fire evacuation, and you find, man, it's taking us 15 minutes to evacuate the building. So, for example, you learn that it's not okay, and people could have been seriously injured by that. So what you do is that, okay, maybe I need to provide more training for everyone. Maybe I need to deploy people who are certified fire wardens in each floor, and so on. So you learn, and then you revise your plan and continue. Okay. On the other option of it, not option, other side. Let's say you train, test, and drill, and then you have an accident. If you have an accident, you go back to your plans, and you deploy them. You deploy the emergency response and business continuity. You recover, and also you learn. You learn, okay, you find out, okay, we had an accident. If had we done this, it would have been better. Let's say there was a flood, you invoked your plan, and then you say, you know what, we have invested less in the dewatering pumps. The pumps which we bought were too small and they shut down more frequently. So for our next continuity, what we will do is that rather than having only the pumps, we need to buy a different brand, or we need to do some other kind of measures to prevent this risk. Okay. As we said that we start with risk, the managed risk plans is that we do a business impact analysis. Okay. And then we start by the managed risk phase. So in the managed risk phase is that we perform the business impact analysis. So the business impact analysis is the study of the effect that of the crisis or the risk that can have on the business. Okay. So for example, if I'm having an earthquake, how serious it is for my operation? Do I have to shut down the operation completely or not? If I'm having a fire, maybe yes, maybe no, I don't know. So that's why you have to see how it affects your business. If I have a flood, let's say if I have a flood and I'm a mall or I'm a 5-star luxury hotel, people are not gonna stay in the hotel. Whereas if it's a hospital, the business impact might be different. Okay. So we develop the emergency preparedness and business continuity plan, and then we create a communication plan. It can be part of the emergency plan, but can be created separately to make it direct to you more. So it can be as elaborate, or Arnold, do you have a question?
Yes, boss.
Yes.
Since we are, example, when we are generating a plan for evacuation of people during fire, is there any target time to evacuate people for a specific building corresponding to the sizes, or?
I think there are rules of thumb. I'm not a safety specialist myself, but I think there are rules of thumb, and usually the safety people will set the target for that. Of course, it cannot be without a target. You cannot say, okay, do a fire drill For example, let me tell you an example of the airport. I think the airplane, they give the target to evacuate in less than 1 minute. I think 30 seconds, something like that. It was a ridiculous number, which they give them a target. So you cannot have an emergency preparedness and for a tower in West Bay and you leave it for 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, many people will die. So definitely there are rules and regulations, but I'm not the person who is specialized to tell you how much exactly for each building, but 100% there are targets for this. Okay. Get management and senior management approval for the necessary resources prior to implementation. Implement the plan phases. In the event of a disaster, implement the emergency. So we prepared an emergency response plan, an ERP, okay? And the moment we have a crisis, is that directly invoke this. Okay. So for example, I used to run a gas company, and there was, gas is a very critical thing. And if you have a gas leakage, it can become a disaster within seconds. So what we will do is that we prepare an emergency response plan. Let's say the driver of the truck, now who does it? The driver of the truck, he has a set of procedures to follow for which he is trained to. If I'm having a leakage, I need to stop on the side, shut down, evacuate the area, shut down immediately the vehicle, and so on. So these things happen again for buildings also. In the event of the disaster, you implement the ERP. Consideration of the following: the emergency team must be gathered and perform their assigned roles and do the necessary actions. So usually in the emergency response plan, we will see the components of it, but it will say that who does what, who takes in charge of the thing, who manages what, who handles what, okay? Ensure of the safety of the property assets, especially the life of building occupants. You see this concept repeated again and again. The life of people is #1 priority. And after we implement, we said that we evaluate and revise. The plan changes from strategic level. So there are many ways for a plan. That's why we said it's a flexible and it's not static. It's continuously improvement. So plan changes may arise from strategic level. So for example, I was initially accepting that I'm going to have a shutdown of my operations for 15 minutes to go back and online. And then down the line, competition increased and I want to improve my service level. So I will say 0 downtime. Okay. Systems or processes, or I buy new furniture, I get a new building added, that can change the whole process of the evacuation. People, building, or tenant. So again, I have a change in the staff which I'm having. For example, I used to have an in-house fire warden staying there, and then I had to let him go. Maybe then I need to change the plan, and let's say rather than having someone dedicated, I go and pay for training other people from other departments to be ready for this. Managing risks, as we said, that all of this starts with the risk. Managing the risks. So first you have to identify the risks and then you manage them. Identify the risks. As I said, if I'm in Japan, I have this. If my facility is close to a nuclear power plant, I have a different type of risk. If my facility is close to the beach, I have a different threat. So that's why, for example, there were embassies which were on the Corniche, towards the end of the Corniche in West Bay, and then they shifted all of those recently. So risk can be internal and external. Internal risks can happen from people, process, technology, and finance. So internal risks can be like someone not taking care of how they are cooking. So that's why, for example, now all the labor camps, they prevent the use of electric heaters because people can cause fires. Okay, the process, how you conduct the business, the technology which you are utilizing. If you are utilizing a dangerous technology, for example, you have radioactive material inside hospitals for X-ray machines and so on. External, this concept is important, the pestle, we call it the pestle. So this usually is utilized by by companies and by not even companies, by bodies, by people, by whatever, to do the pestle analysis when they are moving into a new country. Let's say a business will come, a reputable company will come and want to move to a certain country. They usually do this exercise. They analyze what's the political, economical, social, technological, legal, and environmental framework in which we are running to. So if I'm, for example, I'm a political, if I'm talking about Lebanon, for example, I have some political turmoil that can affect my operation. Economical, depending on the country. So the risks, you see how the risks change with all of this, okay? If there is political unrest, then it will be more risky. So let's say you are managing the facilities for American embassies across the world, okay? Definitely the risks are going to change by the country. And that's why you take more measures when you are going into more vulnerability and so on. Risk management. The following are some of the reasons to embrace risk management. Again, it's with the planning. Why you embrace these things? Because you improve the compliance with the legal requirements and international law norms. You improve corporate governance. You improve stakeholder trust and confidence. You improve voluntary and mandatory reporting. You increase the likelihood of success. And you are generally more proactive. You don't wait for the disaster to happen. You are taking measures before the disaster happens to handle it. What's the role of FM in risk management? This was a question. Ahmad, tell me.
Yes, excuse me, risk management and strategic plan. Is this done by quality control engineer? Because my experience when I was working in Mishirab as consultant in CEG, actually the risk management I see done submitted by the contractor, by the control engineer, the quality control department. So is this their scope?
It depends on the organization. Some companies have a risk management department. Big companies, all of them they have a risk management officer, and they have a separate unit that just handles risks across some big organizations, even locally, have it. They have a risk management team. Their job is to study the legal, the procedural. They look at, and they come and do the audit of the businesses. So from where it comes is not necessary that it comes from an engineer.
Because also, moreover, Mr. Baha, I joined lead auditor, ISO 9001, and I found the same topics, risk management, like that, strategic plan. So
even ISO have their own module for risk management. They have something, there's an ISO certification for risk.
Yes.
The 9001 you're talking about is quality. And
quality,
really,
yes, for quality.
It doesn't really hit much on risk. There's a separate one particularly for risk.
Okay. So not necessarily that from quality engineer or quality department, quality control, quality assurance engineer or quality control assurance engineer. Not essential.
No.
Okay.
It can be from the safety team. It can be from, as I said, a separate business unit, depending how big the organization is and what's the policies they are following.
Okay.
So the role of FM in risk management, the facility manager should be able to determine, so risk we're talking about, usually it happens on an organizational level, okay? But facilities is part of the organization. So as a facility manager, you should be able to help the team by identifying the impact of these risks on your building and your operations. Okay, this is one. And be able to identify the type of risk that the facility is exposed to, participate in organization-wide risk assessment. So we see the cycle of the risk management principles. As we said, it starts with what? Identifying. We identify the risk. We analyze the risk. We treat the risk, means we prepare plans for them, and then we monitor. Let's say after we drill what happens, and then we provide reporting, and it's a continuous cycle. It's like the quality management cycle or the safety management cycle. It never reaches an end. It's always continuous, as long as you are operational, as long as you have risks. The identification of risks, we have already hit on the sides of this, but the risks can be, let's say, natural, man-made, and technological, which is part of like the man-made things. So natural risks, earthquakes, flood, slides, tsunamis, thunderstorm, hailstorm, and so on. Man-made, oil spill, pollution, these are just examples. Fire, factory waste, nuclear waste, terrorism, and so on. Technological, from the internet, we've seen how much technology has been important now, and how much cybersecurity is a very rising business now, because everything is becoming more and more digitized. And now with the IoT coming, which is the Internet of Things, the risks are going to be high. So previously it was linked only to computers, but now these computers control facilities. We've seen it in the case of Iran, how they managed to shut down their nuclear facilities by a security breach online. So now we are having more automated command centers, and let's say someone hacks into that, your operation can be shut down. They can create a disaster for you, okay? Unauthorized access, infections, and so on, so on, and so on. So there are many risks which are surrounding us. To manage the risk management starts with the principle of that risk can be predicted. Risk is a game of probability. Okay, it's a game of probability. We cannot 100% control the risk. Okay, but for example, we know that now through years of research and years of practical operations, that if you put your seatbelt in the car, you are reducing a lot the injury which you might sustain. Okay, so risk can be predicted to a certain extent. Okay, some of it can be very accurately predicted to a certain extent, such as weather forecasts. So that's why you find that when they anticipate a huge rains here, immediately they go and rush and to their operations. And they can be unpredictable. So an example of an unpredictable risk was the spread of the COVID-19. Okay, it happened out of nowhere. I don't think that many people had it on their charts, how it's going to affect their business, and so on. Risk doesn't have to be geographically next to you. It can be distant. For example, if you are operating a factory in Egypt during the revolutions, for example, you can be in somewhere in a remote area, but still you were affected by this because the whole economy was affected by this. So these risks are there, and they can be or very close to you. For example, if you are operating, let's say, a factory next to a paint factory, okay, your risks are higher because you can have from your neighbor a disaster coming to you. So risk assessment, risks equal likelihood times just a minute, risk assessment, okay. Risk equal likelihood times consequence, okay. What does that mean? As we said, is that the risk is a numbers game, okay. And the two factors that we need to multiply is the likelihood and consequence. What does that mean? Now there's a risk that a car will, or let's say a car or a truck will come and hit my house. It's a risk. I live in a house and there's a road outside, and there's a risk that a truck will come and hit it. Trucks are coming by, okay. If it hits the house, what's the consequence? The consequence will be very high, okay, because it creates great damage. But what's the probability of this happening? What's the likelihood of this happening? It's very low. So that's why when we multiply these two, we get a lower number for this risk. So that's why we put it down on our priorities. Whereas, let's say if I'm operating in Oklahoma, let's say and I have the likelihood of having a hurricane is very high. The consequence of having a hurricane is again very high, okay? So these two multiplied, this will increase the risk factor for that particular activity. In Qatar, for example, the likelihood of having heavy rain is high in the winter. The consequence of having heavy rain, again, is high. So you multiply these two and you get with a bigger number for the risk. And then you sort these things according to your priority. You will see a graphical way on how it is handled, okay? And criticality, so when we are looking at the risks, we look at the criticality analysis. We need to understand which assets are critical. So this is what I said initially. When I'm looking at my hospital, I look which assets are critical. My genset is critical. In a hospital, because it's dealing with human life, many things are critical. But there are, even in that, for example, let's say the gardening is not that important. I can still continue without having this. Hamad Hospital has valet service. So if there's a disaster, maybe that's not one of the priorities that I need to consider. The parking area, maybe it's not a priority for me to consider. But let's say even among the whole hospital, the operating rooms will have a very, very high risk, because if a surgeon is doing a surgery and then there's a power shutdown in the building, the patient can die. It's as direct as that. So the criticality is very high. Okay. Then you describe the assets, the type and location, assign and rank a value. So this is when we talked about professionalism and these things. Usually we are trying to create a tangible number to understand how big or small it is. The relevance is important. So the likelihood assessment is based on attractiveness, is due to inherent value, historical information. So the likelihood, we are having tools to access it. So attractiveness due to inherent value. So if I'm running a jewelry shop, let's say I'm running a souk, a full souk, which is for jewelry, a full, we have it here in Qatar in some places. The risk of having a theft is high. It's because due to the inherent value of the process itself. If I'm operating a facility in Ras Laffan, okay, I'm operating the offices in Ras Laffan, the risk of having a fire explosion or something is high due to the inherent process there, okay? Historical information. We have historical information for the last 10, 15 years that whenever there is rain, many businesses will shut down in Qatar. So this determines the probability. Statistics, again, statistics. Let's say in the States, they have done it up to a science. Now in the States, you can select any zip code and you can look at the crime rates there. You can look at the flood rates and so on. So statistics are very important and they're a good tool for you to look into this. And viewpoint dependent, like an expert judgment. An expert judgment will tell you, okay, you have probability, this will increase when you do this. If you're operating in Qatar, it will be reduced and so on. Consequences, so we said that we are talking about the likelihood times the consequence. Consequence, we are analyzing all the dimensions of the hit. Will it affect the environment? Will it affect my reputation? So sometimes the physical consequence of it will be low. Will be the physical consequence will be low, but it can really damage your reputation. So let's say, as we said regarding, let's say, Ooredoo, and if I'm having a core system shut down, it will hit my reputation very bigly. Maybe I will not have a threat to human life, but I have threat to my reputation. Economical impact, maybe it will let me lose lots of clients, they go somewhere else. Losses, property losses, it can be human life and so on. We will see an example of the risk assessment in the risk assessment matrix, which we will be covering. Yes, you guys are jumping me. Sheikh, yes, I'm coming to this. This is the next slide, okay? Yeah. Yes, this is the cause effect or the risk matrix, okay? So the risk matrix, those of you who have done job hazard analysis or job safety analysis are or should be familiar with this. Those of you who don't, I will explain it. Okay, so we are putting the likelihood or the probability on one axis, which is this axis, and the consequences on this axis. So the probability of having a fire in Ras Laffan, let's say I'm operating a housing unit for workers in Ras Laffan. The probability, I don't know, let's say, of having a fire or whatever, let's consider it very likely, okay, because you're dealing with inherent dangerous material. The consequences are critical, so that's why it lands in this area here. Whereas, let's say, you remember, you are multiplying both, so it shows on the graph, and then we highlight them. The way we highlight them depends on how much we have risk appetite. We will cover this risk appetite. So risk can be categorized into 4 major types: high consequence, high probability. So this is something, as we said, like a hurricane in Oklahoma State. It's a high consequence. It can destroy a whole town or city, and high probability. So in that case, if I'm running a facility there, it starts from design. I have to be prepared for a hurricane from day one. And when the hurricane happens, I should have an emergency preparedness. I should shut down early and so on, take several measurements. High consequence, low probability. So some things can happen, like the example which I mentioned, like having a truck hit us. This has a high consequence, but a low probability. So we're talking high consequence and low probability. So it lands here. High consequence, low probability. Low consequence, high probability. So there's on, let's say, some certain businesses, even if it rains, if I'm running an office building, okay, it will have a very, it's very likely to have a flood, okay, but the consequences are really low. And what will happen? I will shut down the office for 2 days, or people will be a little bit late. So it's not maybe that critical. So it comes in that area. So we see that how it comes across the 4 corners. And in the last one, we're talking about low consequence, low probability. So this is a risk maybe we decide to accept. So there's something in risk acceptance. It means that we don't take any measures. We keep it as it is. So yeah, the example which I gave as a truck hitting my building, okay, maybe I don't need to mitigate and put barriers. But if I am the embassy of a country, then no, this is something that I need to prepare to. So it depends on my business. So regardless whether the identified activity is a high consequence or high probability, as long as it falls within the risk tolerance level, okay. Yeah, so regardless whether the identified activity is a high consequence, so it depends on the risk appetite of the organization. So some organizations have very low risk appetite because the consequences can be in billions of dollars. So they will say that we will cover all the risks up to the green, up to here, for example. Others will say, no, we will only look at the critical risks because we are running, let's say, something that's not very important, and have a big example. This I put, okay, this example I put on how companies consider risk. This is, I think, from British Petroleum. This is just put there for demonstration to tell you how they even quantify it. So this is typical upstream risk matrix. By the way, risk in oil and gas is very well managed. Because the inherent losses and consequences are huge. We saw how the oil spill for BP that happened in the Gulf of Mexico cost them more than $40 billion. So the consequences are horrible. So what they do is that they go and put potential consequences, fatalities above 150, oil spill above 1 million barrel, financial above $10 billion. And it goes all the way to having just minor lost time injuries, less oil spill, a financial less than $10,000. So for someone like Exxon or whatever, maybe they don't need to look at this. They consider it safe and they accept it. So they see this. Whereas others, they have put critical and highly critical. Okay. So the other side, I said the likelihood, theoretically possible, has not occurred in industry, all the way to occurs very frequently. So this applies to any business, and you do a risk analysis based on that and you rank them. Okay. Identifying and assessing risks. We continue this. So I've been jumping, of course. I've been talking about things which are coming and repeated here again, but that's okay. I hope that you are understanding the concept, so it's okay if we repeat some of them. So identifying the critical assets and processes. So if we identified the risks, okay, now we need to identify what assets are critical, what processes are critical, what will affect, as I said, for example, the process of doing the valet parking service is not maybe something that will kill my business. I can still continue without a valet parking service. I can still run an airport without having the cleaning team coming and doing their hourly cleaning. But I cannot run an airport, for example, if I don't have the immigration present there. So it's an activity to identify the important assets and the processes, or mission essential process, or we call it mission essential functions, and assets critical to the continued existence of the organization. So if I am managing the facility of QNB, and QNB has a data center, the assets there are going to be very important for the business itself, because it can destroy the continued existence of the organization. Assets can be the definition of asset. What's an asset? This will be, again, this is like from a financial perspective or even non-financial. There is something which we call a current asset and something we call as a fixed asset. Current asset is an asset or something that you own, and they can be tangible or intangible. We will cover that. So in terms of tangible assets, they can be current or fixed assets. Current assets, the definition from a financial perspective is something that you can liquidate within less than 1 year. Okay. The fastest, the most liquid current asset is cash. Cash equivalents, short-term investments, stocks, and accounts receivables are called as current assets. Fixed assets, they are buildings, equipment, machinery, tools, and so on. So you have tangible assets and you have intangible assets. Okay, the intangible assets, like the brand recognition. What does that mean? If I am Coca-Cola, probably if I lose a factory due to fire, it's not really gonna create a big dent in my operations. But the brand itself is so important that if I have a fire in one of my factories and people get injured or dead, the influence on the brand is gonna be huge. The consequence is gonna be a lot of losses, okay? Because my brand is very important. I'm trying to protect my brand. Brand recognition is important. Business methodologies, copyrights are intangible assets. Copyrights and patents, for example, were one of the assets that kept Nokia floating till now. Nokia reached a valuation in the market of $40 billion. And then over the few years, it went down and hit up to 4 now, I think. What has kept it floating are their assets, which are the copyrights and the patents which they had for their own equipment. Financial assets, bank balance, bonds, stocks, and so on. Human assets. So human assets, the knowledge is an asset. The capacity is an asset. The skills, talents, and everything else. So that's why human assets. We have talked about the critical processes. We talked about the mission essential functions. So the mission essential functions are the important ones which are critical for our operations to continue. And there are supporting functions to this mission essential function. So they are secondary. Okay. And then you have the non-mission essential functions. So these are lower on a priority. Let's say like gardening. Okay. They are not really on the top priority and will not affect it. People are still gonna come to the mall if for a few days you don't have gardening there, and so on. So the same philosophy can apply to different processes. Identifying critical assets and processes, we continue with this. So the business process analysis. What's the business process analysis? A business process analysis is usually you have a process for everything you do in the organization, whether you state it or not. The process is the methodology in which you conduct it. If you are having an ISO 9001, then no, you should map the process. It means create a flow chart of the process, see what documentation are there and continue it. But even if you don't have a written one, this is what you have, a business process analysis. No matter how rudimentary it is. For example, if I want to purchase something, if it's less than 5,000 Riyal, I can go and get petty cash to do it. If it's more, I have to take it through procurement. I have to have the approval of the general manager and so on. So these processes are there and they rule our organization. So when we are looking at the risks, okay, we go and look into the critical processes and analyze them so that you can, once we analyze them, we need to understand how it happens. So for example, let's say an airport, an important business process for the airport is to let the passenger come in, get security check, gets to the counter, gets his ticket seat, what you call it, the boarding pass issued, goes to immigration, and then goes and boards the plane. So this process itself, when you map it, you'll be able to understand the critical processes there or not in this operation. So as I said that maybe I can go and combine things, and in case of emergency, I will accept certain things which I will not normally accept. So based on when you do the business process analysis, you will be able to determine the unnecessary risks within the process. So I go and ask a factory, how do you take the material out? They show me how it's done. And then maybe they are utilizing and increasing their risks. Let's say they are carrying it by hand rather than using a forklift. So this eliminates the risks when you look at it. Or they're using fire to do some certain kind of process. And once you map a process, you will be able to understand where are your bottlenecks. So a process, usually it's mapped like a flow chart. This is a start, and then you have a hold point, check, approved, and you move on, okay? When you analyze a process, you can see if, okay, rejected, it goes back here, let's say, and comes here again. So you will be able to improve some efficiencies on that. The process should minimize or eliminate waste, replace processes with a new version, and uncover the problems of or issues. Factors that affect for effective risk management: closeness to first responders. This is again an important thing. Close to a police, fire, medical, and so on. So how far are the first responders away from me? That again, let's say I am operating in a big country such as Indonesia, and I am operating my facility. Let's say I have a facility as a power plant which I'm managing, and it's very far from everywhere. It's very far from police, fire, or medical. Then it means that I need to take extra measures to have it. Maybe I need to hire someone to be there as a trained medic all the time in case something happens to one of my staff. Availability of resources, the budget to mitigate the risk. As I said, again, this definitely has a huge impact. So a company such as Exxon, they can afford to have a separate risk management division. Banks have risk management divisions because they have the budget for it and it's inherent to their operations. Plus the consequences are going to be very high. Confidence in existing risk control, culture and attitude of organization towards risk management. This we see it with some contractors. Some contractors have a very high safety and risk sensitivity. It means that they will do their own controls and measures. Then regulating them, you need less effort. but others maybe they have none. You can still see workers coming to sites with flip-flops and so on. So that definitely affects your risk. Legal or regulatory requirements. I mentioned a lot the legal requirements in Qatar for wuqud compliance, Qatar civil defense compliance. So again, this will, a large part of your risk management has been done in that area. Required recovery time before it affects the organization to achieve its mission and goals. The type of facility, is it shared or not with other building occupants or tenants? If it's my own facility, I have better control over it. If it's a rented facility and I want to do the fire drill, I can do it maybe for my office, or I try to coordinate it with everyone else. Type of hazard, spread of arson, tsunami, or whatever. Type of loss, how critical it is. Are we talking about the risk of losing an employee, risk of using an equipment, or risk of using anything, a kind of assets, using some cash into this? For example, the floods that happening in Qatar, the risk on human life, thank God we don't have fatalities, whereas in other countries there are. In Saudi Arabia, in the floods, at one point, more than 100 persons died. So the risk varies depending on the country, the infrastructure, where you're operating, the kind of business, and so on. The facility manager should involve and participate in organization. So IFMA considers this as something to be done on an organizational level, and you should be prepared for your own facility. You should be coordinating the announced and unannounced drilling exercises. So some drilling exercises are announced, they will tell you on so and so date we will do a risk there, and sometimes it comes out of the blue and they just sound the alarms. I don't find it here very common, but in many other countries it is. Ensure effective coordination with first responders, because the facility manager is in the building. The nature of our job is to be inside the building or having a team inside the building. So you are there on the physical asset, you are there in touch with first responders, involved in the building design and occupants' needs for assessment of facilities, maintenance the necessary resources for emergency response, participate and support an occupant or employee or fire floor training program, support inspections by insurance, perform due diligence. So basically you are looking at areas where risk will come to you. You are looking at the building evacuation, how to deal with first responders, and so on. I've mentioned the risks, and this is not only for technology risks. This is like talks about technology risks, but there are also other kinds of risks. Handling risks, usually one part is avoidance. Avoidance means that avoiding totally the risk. If I open my factory in California, I'm gonna have an earthquake risk. I find it that too much risky for me, so I go and avoid the whole factory. I shift it to another place. I totally eliminate that risk. The risk is going, it went from being very high to being minor. Mitigation means that in case it happens, what to do. So for example, mitigation of risks can include backup for data, standby generations, and system or equipment redundancy. Prevention is to prevent it altogether, prevent it from happening, okay? So you are killing the risk itself. You are preventing it totally from occurring. So let's say in case of fire systems have risk mitigation and risk prevention altogether. So for example, if I prevent everyone from utilizing heaters, I'm doing a prevention. Mitigation, in case it happens, I have a firefighting system. Okay, so this is a mitigation. Transfer, when you're transferring the risk, you are transferring the sequence of the risk to someone else. This is what we call insurance. Insurance is a form of transfer of risk. That's why you pay a premium to the insurance company. In case I have fire and I'm going to lose my assets, I'm transferring the risks to you. Developing the plans. Okay, before we continue with this, let's take a 10-minute break and be here at 8:40. Okay? You're copying me, guys? Yeah, okay, so let's meet at 8:40, please.
Thank you, copy.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay, we are back. You guys are here?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes,
we
sir.
continue where we stopped. I see some communication. Okay. Okay, we're talking about the plans. We've reached the plans, the emergency plan and the business continuity plan. The purpose of an emergency response plan, an ERP, is to create an organizational procedure and structure for response to major emergencies from crisis management until restoration and recovery efforts. So after I identified, I don't know if you've looked at an ERP before, but usually an ERP will work down from the risks, okay? It will be a comprehensive plan and will say, for example, it will start with an introduction. This talks about so-and-so facility and the potential risks. The potential risks are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? In case of a fire, scenario 1, what are the procedures? The procedures, for example, the ERP will have the list of numbers to contact. It will have a list of contractors. It will have list of any tools or procedures that you can need in order to someone will go through the manual. It's like a manual. What will happen in case of this scenario happening? You do 1, 2, 3, 4. You first of all notify your the agencies like fire department and so on. Sometimes you need to identify more than one party. I've worked on emergency response plans where maybe you needed to identify 16 different organizations, you know, like you have to identify the Coast Guard, you have to identify so and so, and others, and then you have this person will take charge of this and so on. So there are some concepts there to be considered. I don't know how someone put clear all drawings. Okay. So an after action report. An after action report is, these are the nomenclature that you utilize, okay? An after action report is the lessons learned report, or it shows what happened. The report that happens after an incident. On so and so date, so time, this happened. Mitigation plans include this, the responding time, what was this, and so on. So as I said, it's also termed as a lesson learned report. Okay, so the lesson learned, maybe we need to change our procedure, we need to do more training, etc. An assembly area is an area where people have been told to wait after evacuating in the event of a fire or other emergency. This again, part of the civil defense requirements in Qatar. You find buildings which are having assembly areas outside. Chain of command is the order in which power and authority in an organization are delegated and exercised from top management to every employee. So the change of, usually sometimes what happens, there'll be even a shift in the chain of command in emergency responses. Because the person who should be in charge for responding to the emergency has nothing to do with his seniority. It has to do more with how, let's say a fire happens in an office. It's not the general manager who is best equipped to handle it. Probably, let's say the head of the safety will be, if he's staying in the same office, he will have the change of command and he will control the scene. This is how it should happen because he's much more prepared and trained to do that. Check-in, this is a process in which the resources first respond to an incident. May include staging areas and so on. So check-in, let's say that part of my emergency response plan, I am managing for Exxon, and I have a central, I have a contract with the security agency. Like when I press the button or when I inform them, let's say I'm a bank And when the teller presses something, immediately someone will come, and I have an agreement with them, like the moment there's an accident or something, they will come and deploy people. Okay, so this is the process called of check-in. When the people or resources come first, they go and do check-in. They will say, let's say during the water flood, I have made arrangements that with so and so company, I will immediately order 4 tankers to be on standby. So the moment they come in, they go and do a process which is called check-in. Check-in means that we are telling you that the resources are available at your disposal. Okay. Staging areas is areas where these resources are kept until utilized. Camps or incident command post. My mouse is stuck. Okay, fine. Okay. Check-in. Command post. Command post is the post in which the incident commander, so the incident commander is the person who is in charge of the incident. And as I said, the incident, if it's a fire, maybe the fire warden should be the incident commander. If it's an electric problem and I'm having electrocution, it can be the facility specialized guy who's handling this. So a command post is an ad hoc location established at or as near as possible to a disaster site from which the incident commander functions. So the command post is where the whole operations are run. It contains the communications, coordination, controls, and command elements necessary to direct and manage the initial response to the event. Delegation of authority. So the delegation of authority is a statement provided to the incident commander by the agency executive, delegating authority and assigning responsibility. So this can be part of the emergency response plan. In the case of an emergency, let's say the head of safety deployed totally at the, continuously at the hospital, he will be in charge of the incident until and otherwise instructed. Okay, so we can put that, and we are giving him the authority to act on that. We are giving him the authority to go and purchase material, to call companies, to do whatever is needed to contain the situation. The delegation of authority can include constraints, so there might be limitations, objectives, priorities, and other guidelines or considerations as needed. So, for example, I can say delegation of authority, whoever is on site in case of an emergency can spend up to 20,000 riyal. After higher than this, then maybe he needs to go to someone from head office and get an approval over the phone. They should have an objective, for example, objective to control the situation until the first responders come. Priorities, I can dictate what are the priorities. The priorities, for example, can be first, preservation of a human life, second, preservation of the company image, and so on. Emergency assembly area is a designated place where people have told to wait after evacuation. Emergency Operations Center is the physical location or temporary or permanent facility at which the coordination of resources and information to support incident management, on-scene operations take place and may be organized by first responders such as civil defense, police, etc. Functions, one of the 5 major activities in the incident command system. So there are functions when you are having an incident command system. Command, finance, why finance is needed, and the function of finance, because you may need to spend money and it will incur costs. Logistics, how to mobilize, operations, and planning. A 6th function, investigation intelligence, may be established if required. The incident commander is the individual responsible for all incident activities, including the development of an ordering of resources and so on. The incident commander has overall and responsibility and authority, and is responsible for the management of all incident operations at the site. Incident command post, a facility established close to the incident scene which serves as a base location for managing field operation. So this is the incident command post. all activities within the defined scope of the incident. Lockdown. So this is a term again. What is lockdown? Lockdown, it means this is an emergency protocol, and it's usually happened in case where it's more dangerous for the people to exit the building. So if you've watched movies regarding hurricanes, usually they put an evacuation for whole cities. But after, when the hurricane comes close, they will come and say, okay, lockdown. It means stay wherever you are. Because now if you are outside and on the street, you are at a much higher risk than staying indoors. So it's an emergency protocol to prevent information or people from escaping, which usually can be ordered by someone in command, okay? Of buildings, a partial lockdown means people may not exit or enter the building, and the doors leading outside the building are locked. Let's say if I'm having a security breach, I can order a lockdown. No one leaves, no one enters till we find out what happened inside. Memorandum of Understanding, an MOU, is a document. So why an MOU is needed? Sometimes you need to make an MOU with, I said, like regarding the floods, I can go and rather than deploying and hiring people, I can make a memorandum of understanding with the company which provides these services that in case there is an emergency, he will deploy immediately 4 trucks and they will be on site within half an hour. So this is a memorandum of understanding on the action to be taken and the responsibility of each party. Shelter in place, lockdown is the shutdown. This is the shelter in place. Shelter in place is selecting an interior room, taking refuge when conditions make evacuation more dangerous. So sheltering in place, let's say you have a mass shooting. We saw it unfortunately in the States a lot happening. And what they do is that they are advised to go and shelter in place, not to move. And if they are, say, in a different room, to lock down the class and stand there. Span of control. Span control, this is something related to organizational management and organizational charts, is the number of resources for which a supervisor is responsible. So it's usually expressed as a ratio. So it can be, let's say, between 1 to 3. One person manages 3 people, up to 1 to 7, or so on. So it depends on the organization. Staging areas, we talked about it during when we mentioned the check-in. Staging areas, temporary location of available resources not immediately assigned. So in the case which I mentioned regarding the flood, I can have an MOU with so-and-so company that the moment that the rain starts happening, with one phone call, you should deploy 4 trucks. And these trucks will go to a staging area. Staging area, I can identify, okay, the east parking, you will go and park there and wait. So this is a temporary location for resources not immediately assigned. Unity of command. Unity of command is a concept where it means that a system that each individual will be assigned to only one supervisor. It means that if I need to do something, even if I'm dictated by a client or dictated by someone, I have to take the approval of my direct supervisor. So this is unity of command. It talks to one person only to give instructions. Command and coordination. The chain of command may be delegated when the primary leaders cannot fulfill their duties or are not present. So in aviation, for example, there's a direct thing, chain of command, pilot, co-pilot. If something happens to the pilot, co-pilot has full authority. He will take the full delegation of authority will come to him. Similarly, it can be in a business. Let's say you can put, okay, in case of emergency inside the building, the designated facility manager should be in charge. In case the facility manager is not available, okay, his second person in this command should be taken full charge until the other person comes. So this is what we are calling the command. Local or functional level, strategic level, tactical level. So the command and coordination, there are some decisions which are happening on the local level or functional level. determining the deployment of tactics at a local level. It may include the floor wardens, functional managers, or emergency coordinators. So usually this happens during the onset of the crisis, the emergency response. The decision will usually happen on a local level. Someone is having a fire inside the hospital, he's not going to call the CEO of the hospital immediately. He has to take action immediately there. He has to notify, he has to touch, he has to inform the fire alarm company. Other decisions during the crisis management, and this is where we mentioned where management is involved, that the decision affects the whole organization, and the decision will come from top management or the crisis management team. There are sometimes difficult decisions that have to be taken in the case of emergency. Shall we evacuate? Shall we not evacuate? And so on. Tactical level, the decision comes from the operational or facility level. The decision normally comes from an incident or emergency management team. So these are three different levels of command and taking them. One of them happens even on the floor level. One of them happens tactical level on the ground, and another will happen at a strategic level at the highest organization. Incident commander. An incident commander, someone who is more qualified to handle this, he has responsibilities. He has to understand the needs of employees and the people there. He has to direct staff to develop the incident action plan. He has to establish the incident objectives. So what are the incident objectives? How high? Okay, incident objective, I'm having a solid fire, to evacuate the people as soon as possible and shut down the building. Is responsible for all functions until assigned and delegated to staff. So incident commander will have the full control of everything, and then he can start delegating tasks. So let's say the water evacuation can be handled by so and so, calling the civil defense will be handled by and so and so and so on. So, but he will have the initial control over everything. He should be in charge of arranging the services and resources. Then also he should monitor and analyze costs during the analysis of time and processes such as procurement. Emergency response plan, I talked a lot about it, but again, it should serve as a guide to educate and train facility occupants and staff. So an emergency response plan will include the risk scenario. It will include that, okay, due to this, we are having an earthquake risk, and we are having a fire risk, and we are having internal security breach. So if someone goes through the ERP, they will be able to see what can possibly happen, and they are educated. Using this, you can do an assessment of the incident. Again, the emergency response plan is a living document. It gets frequently changed. Emergency response plans also include the schedule of training that should be done. What kind of training? Is it drills? Is it theoretical training? It includes, as we said, responding to different types of incident. In case of fire, you handle this. In case of a water flood, you handle this. It includes preparing for the resource available at sites, such as equipment and supplies. So you can keep equipment and supplies prepared for any emergency. FM role in emergency response. FM has the responsibility to create an emergency response plan for the division for FM related functions, which should contain the following: emergency procedures, duties and responsibilities, internal and external emergency contact information. So it can be as simple as, you've seen it on sites or in certain things, even on hotels it's put. There's like a simple emergency response plan, and there will be an escalation chart. You've seen it in construction sites. Okay, if this is this injury, you call this first the safety officer, then you escalate to the manager. It will tell you how to go through it. This is a simple form of an emergency response plan. The emergency response plan can be as elaborate as or as simple as the business needs. Tools and equipment needed during the emergency, and the training strategies. To ensure both life and property safety, FM should respond rapidly by having the following: adequate resources to address the emergency needs, an effective chain of command, collaboration with insurance and risk management and emergency planning. Insurers usually are the people who want you to be as safe as possible. Why? Because if you are not, then they are also subject to risk. So insurance companies like you not to have losses. So, and they can help you with that. Effective preventive maintenance is taking place. Emergency teams are well prepared. So effective, let's say, that's why part of your plant preventive maintenance scheduling includes securing that your fire alarm system, your gas system, your security system are cross-checked. And when you are doing this preventive maintenance, you are reducing the risk. Ammar, tell me.
Just a question come to my mind now. Who's usually involved to set up a workflow for emergency plan?
As I said, it depends on the organization. It depends who is handling what. If you are part of a huge organizations which have a risk management team, you will be asked to provide some data and involve in minimal things. Whereas if you are having your own, you don't have a risk management team, you need to do it yourself. So it depends on the organizations. If there's nothing to add, I will continue. Emergency teams are well prepared to perform their duties, support for training and drilling exercises, up-to-date information of facility to the first responders. This is again a very important thing. During fire, what you will do, you will need to provide the floor map for the first responders to show them where are the possible areas of entry and exit. This is very important, and you have to tell them the information. Okay, we had the fire in this area. We believe that it happened in the engine room, and the engine room is located next to this. There is, we contained the fire to this side, but to the east side, it's not there. So this is again the role of a facility manager's team and facility manager. Some benefits of having a business continuity. So we talked about the emergency preparedness. Now we're talking about business continuity. So first we talk about how to handle and manage the crisis. Yes, Sheikh.
So I wanted to know, is there any standard set frequency for revision of BCP plan or emergency plan, like every 2 yearly or every 5 yearly? Is there any set standard for that?
Usually, at least you should review it annually.
Annually.
At least, yes, at least annually. And again, it depends on the organization and what strategy you are taking as an organization.
Okay, I'm still getting sometimes confused between BCP plan and emergency plan.
Emergency response plan, when you are having a crisis, okay, you first look how to handle the emergency, right? Business continuity, after you have, actually you can invoke it if you go back. Let me show you. Stay with me.
Sure.
We go here, okay. You see, this is the emergency response. You prepared an emergency response plan, okay? The moment you have the fire, you invoke the response. While you are normalizing the situation, you see there's a gap. Part of the crisis management, you are starting now, okay, the imminent danger is gone. There was a fire, there was a threat on the life of the people staying in your hotel, okay? And you were mainly focused on that. You were invoking the emergency response plan. Then when you had the thing under control, let's say the fire started to become under control, it has been turned off, it's now confined in one area, and only now they're doing with small consequences. Then even before it ends, you can involve your business continuity plan. Business continuity plan, okay, now we control the fire. How can I continue my services? Okay, I start invoking my business continuing plan. Okay?
Okay, clear, thank you.
Clear, good. So I go back to again, why it's good to have the same concepts are repeating. Again, when you're having a business continuity plan, you are more proactive, you give confidence to your clients and employees, you improve the compliance with the regulatory requirements, you are minimizing losses of money, you are, let's say if I'm prepared with a business continuity plan, I can continue running my hotel faster than if I am not. Maintaining organizational image and branding, which is a very important thing, and minimizing financial losses. When we talked about the sites and redundancies, this is a concept there. So contingency strategies, there are 3 types of backup alternative sites. Okay, depending on the business and the criticality, maybe only some function you need it. So we have a cold site, warm site, and a hot site. What's a cold site is that you are having a secondary location, but there is no equipment at the location, no connectivity, and you can shift there. Let's say you are a company which is providing data management services. Okay, you can have a cold site which is okay, so and so building, I have an MOU that I can go and rent from them this much area at any time, but the cold site is an empty space with basic facilities, okay, but it doesn't have any specialized thing. Next to it is a warm site. It includes basic facilities but can only perform a smaller scale of operations. So I have this is partial redundancy, and the hot site is 100% redundancy. It's a duplicate of the original site of the organization. So what I knew, I had one time one gentleman who told me about how Ooredoo are having hot sites. Let's say their command center, there is a total replica of it somewhere else. If there's a problem on that site, they can shift to the other site and run it immediately. Okay. And you can have 100% redundancy. So it will have the shortest, and when you're having a hot site, the outage will be measured in hours or minutes. When you're having a warm site, the outage will be measured in days, hours, and the cold site, because you need to mobilize, you need to shift, you need to whatever, and this is a cold site. Outsourcing as a contingency. So sometimes it's good to outsource some of the mission essential functions to another party. So what does that mean? Let's say that a mission essential function for me is to have redundancy. What I can do is that I can make a power redundancy. I can make an agreement with a power rental company to rent sets, that in case of shutdown, you will come and rather than me going and buying this, I sign an MOU with you, you come and provide me with power. I subcontract it to you. Document and data security. Cloud computing is a practice of using networks. So cloud computing, this is a way again to manage risks rather than having it on your local computer or personal service. Everything is backed up on a cloud. Many organizations are having it. So in case there is a data loss, everything is backed up. Business impact analysis. So business impact analysis predicts the consequences of disruption of a business function.
Outsourcing is similar like SLA, service level agreement.
Yeah, service level agreement is a way to formalize outsourcing.
All right. Okay, thanks.
Okay. So a business impact analysis, I hit down on it earlier. A business impact analysis predicts the consequences of a business function and process. Okay, potential loss scenarios should be identified during business risk assessment. So it's a process of creating systems of recovery and prevention to detail with potential threats to an organization to ensure that the assets and personnel are protected and be able to perform in the event of a disaster, such as a server breakdown. So business impact analysis. So as we said, we start with the risk, identifying the risk. We identified that if we are operating in California, we have an earthquake risk. How will that affect my business? This is what part of our analysis. Okay, if I am a recreational facility, let's say, people will not stay. Maybe I will have interruption in my data and so on. So how it will affect me? Tips for effective emergency plan and business continuity plans. You have to determine the daily business routines and a responsible person. Do testing and drilling to make sure it works. Plan emergency response team ahead of time. So the ERP team should be prepared ahead of time. And we don't have to squander and think. Can you imagine two scenarios? One scenario, you have full preparedness. You have done the scenarios for evacuating a building, for handling. You know who will handle what. You know that on so and so floor, this person, we are appointing to take charge in case of a fire. Versus having the same company which is occupying a tower, let's say, having a fire alarm, and then they will run like headless chicken. Okay, so it's good to have a preparation before that. Provide an instruction to help affected parties. Provide simple tips and constructions. So again, this is effective plan can be a simple one. I will go through this one. Revise and effect any changes in the plan, maintain its version control, understand the facility, business, and its operations. So this is an extra leaflet which I took from a university. Okay. It has a simple safety and security guide for the people who are students. Okay, it defines the lockdown, shelter in place, and evacuate. It tells them in the event of a life-threatening incident, call 911 first, and then campus security if possible, and inform your location of the building. A label with security phone number and room number is located on the light switch in each room. You see how simple and basic it is? So anyone basic can understand this. Then it defines the terms. Lockdown. Okay, in case we declare lockdown, it means locks lights out of sight. Lockdown is called when there is a threat or hazard inside the building. Whereas evacuate, we evacuate to an unannounced location. So it's called to move students and staff from one location. Shelter is called when the need of personal protection is necessary. Types, tornado, bomb, hazmat, follow instructions, and so on. It identifies the risks, inclement weathers, tornado, fire, smoke, explosions. So it's a one-page thing which has basic information and which will prove very helpful in case there's a fire, in case there's a bomb, there is whatever it is. So this is like a simple graphical tool which can be used to mitigate the risks. In implementing the plans, a concept that again is added is drive-away kits. So you can prepare a drive-away kit. A drive-away kit includes communication and computer equipment. Drive-away kit is like a ready kit. In case of emergency, you can take it and go outside the building. You can go to the incident command post. So what you have identified, you are running a hospital, and you will say that, okay, there is an empty building next to the security guard outside. I will use it as my base there. Okay, and the moment this happens, I have a takeaway kit in the building. I can take it, and this takeaway kit will include the business continuity plan. It will include the key contact information of the teams, the companies, the resources that I can use. Maybe there's an additional security company that they come and deploy, the contracts and everything. Maps to alternate sites, personal supplies such as cash or credit cards, temporary work supplies such as a light, flashlight, batteries, and so on, tools routinely used by emergency preparedness and business continuity teams. Test, train, and drill. There are different types of training and drilling, full-fledged training, theoretical training, and so on. We will be looking into those in the next slide. Training is important. Why? Because it determines gaps in the resources. As I earlier mentioned, we did an evacuation of a tower and we found out that it's taking us 15 minutes. Then maybe no, we need to change our resources. Rather than having only one fire coordinator in each floor, maybe we need to determine opportunities for improvement, improve interagency communication and coordination. Again, I tell you is that imagine not being prepared and having a fire versus being prepared and having a fire. Test and validate procedures, plan equipment, train and clarify employees' responsibilities and roles. So everyone should participate in testing and training programs to determine the effectiveness of the plan. Emergency response team can test and practice the effective deployment. Let the facility staff train on how to take down or bring up building systems. So, okay, let's say we put that in case of fire, you immediately go and shut down the power. So are you able to do that quickly? Or you immediately back up the data and evacuate the building, things like that. The testing and training of emergency preparedness must satisfy the needs of the organization. This is what we talked about. It depends on the type of the organization, what resources you have, how much time you have, how much interruption you can, how critical is your system for you, how dangerous it is. If you're operating a chemicals factory, it's much more critical for you than if you're operating a car workshop, for example. The level of hazard in one place is much higher than the other. Training and testing program must be reviewed as a cohesive program and not a separate training event. So this is what I'm talking about, the different types of training. It starts with seminars. It means like theoretical things, workshops, tabletops, games. You can see that these are discussion-based. These down the line are discussion-based drills and training. And then you have operation. Operation means it starts with drills. And then you have functional exercise and full-scale exercise. To make it closer to you, think of military. The military, they always do these kinds of drills. They have the basic drills and trainings where you have theoretical knowledge. Okay, in case of war, what happens? They have simulations. And they have simulations sometimes, they will say, with blank ammo. And they do full-scale exercises with live ammo. This is like the highest thing. So similarly, in emergency preparedness, you can say, I will evacuate only one floor to see this and measure it. Or I will evacuate the full building. And I will call the security. And I will call my contractors. I will do whatever. I want to do a full-scale exercise to the end to see how effective I am. The aim of mock drill exercise is to enhance emergency preparedness, to evaluate the readiness, to evaluate gaps, to revise your standard operating procedures. When you do, you measure, you test, to find out how effective or ineffective you are. Respond, recover, and learn. When an incident occurs, the following must be conducted. Assess and escalated according to the emergency response plan. So now the ERP becomes your frame of reference. Okay, Ammar, you raised your hand again.
Yes. Is there any KPI that usually measured for the drill?
Yeah, you can set the KPIs. This will be part of the emergency response plan. You can set KPIs.
Okay. Usually, what's the KPI? What the KPIs are used for to measure the effectiveness of this plan?
Response time is one critical one.
Response time.
Yeah, it's very critical.
Okay. one more thing for conducting the drills. It's preferred to be like annual or quarterly or monthly.
As I said, the frequency depends on your business needs, the resources that you have, and like when I was working for some time in Indonesia, they used to take their fire drills very seriously. And I think every 1 month there was a fire drill. Okay, so it depends on the business itself, because in that building we had people such as Shell and whatever. The needs for that were very high. So it depends on the business, the resources that you have, and whatever. So think of it like insurance. Some companies, even individuals, some individuals will go and buy only the basic insurance, which is the third-party insurance. Other will buy the full insurance. Even the full insurance, you have insurance where they get a replacement car and so on. So depending on your needs, you can select what you want.
Okay, clear.
Okay, so when an incident occurs, this must happen. Secure the coordination. We've covered all of this actually. Provide information to the occupant. Evacuate as early as possible. The affected occupant might require a counseling from the HR to minimize fear and trauma. Again, the psychological aspects are even addressed in an emergency response plan, and so on. A typical emergency response plan, you saw it happening, if you remember the September 11, everyone was watching it on screens, how they evacuated the buildings, how the first responders came. It was a total chaos. Some people were evacuated on time. Others died because they couldn't evacuate. And due to that, many companies changed their design of how they handle emergencies and how they evacuate and so on. Damage assessment. After we have done this is part of the business continuity. We go and assess, okay? And usually we'll have, let's say, as I said, you have a hotel, it had a fire, we controlled the fire, the people are waiting in the assembly area. Damage assessment team should go. Maybe it's a minor fire and I can go and shut down, but usually a damage assessment team will have first aid kits, food, depending on the situation and where you are, personal protective equipment, materials such as the plans, maintenance records, tools for documenting the assessment, cameras, video recorders, checklists to do the analysis of the situation, tools to access the incident scene. Maybe imagine like having an earthquake, you know, and having half the building destroyed. You need to have flashlights, you need to have a chainsaw, you need to have things like this, access codes, and so on. Insurance, after we have determined it's safe, you know, by insurance, you're required to report an incident immediately. So after you control the situation, if you want to have an insurance claim, you should invoke that, and you should, the facility manager should invite the insurance company to conduct a facility tour to determine the replaceable, repairable, or usable items. Recovery, so we started by emergency response, we went to the business continuity, the assessment where we are, and now we are working on the final thing, which is the recovery, disaster recovery. During the recovery phase, the FM has the function of resuming the facility function as soon as possible to support the organization recovery effort, manage recovery projects. So there might be some recovery projects, we have to repaint, we have to buy new chillers, we have to, whatever it takes, okay? Support the sustainability efforts such as reusing reusable materials, act as a liaison with external parties such as insurers, manage the salvage material, document recovery, commission the new and repaired systems. Evaluate and revise the plan. This is an answer to your question. Perform at least once annually the review, assessment, and evaluation of the business continuity and risk management plan. Annual reviews ensures the accuracy and effective of the program. Some, as I said, might not even wait for 1 year. A company which is having a risk management team and fully deployed, and they are always there breathing all over your neck. Some companies have this. If there are significant changes in the workplace or workforce, it is necessary to call for a prompt review. So maybe if you have like a major change, then you can do, let's say you bought a very new, you added a new section to your factory. You bought a new equipment which can cause more fire risks, and you need to do an immediate review. You put an equipment there which is utilizing high volatile liquid which can burn. So an annual audit should be free from any form of bias. This is the definition of audits. So that was it for today. We will look now into the what you call the questions. So in the narrative of the emergency, in which phase is senior management most directly involved? Yes, Sheikh, you have a question?
Yes, sir. It's regarding the building insurance that you just mentioned over. Being in FMA, and especially in Qatar, like we have more often have seen that people are addressing building insurance. Can you please elaborate a little more on that one? As
So
FM, what are our...
You will have an insurance coverage with the company. Okay, and it will be regarding like building defects or workmanship, not workmanship, compensation, the defects, and it depends on your insurance policy. And usually what happens, the insurance policy will have a procedure. They will tell you, okay, as soon as possible, and it's not like once, not very far ago, there was a burst pipe in one very famous hotel here. And the water went from one floor and it hit floors on the 3-4 floors down. Okay, and then the teams went and repaired it and shut it down. But the next step was, because there was so much damage, you had to call the insurance company. The insurance company will come, will do a technical review themselves, will ask for a report from your side, and it happens on you convincing them that this is something that's covered by their insurance policy and it's not related to sabotage. Each insurance policy is different. Like it can be more comprehensive or it can be less comprehensive. So this is the insurance. That's why you invoke it as soon as you have something.
Does it have like the same premiums we have like for car, for annual premiums? The same applies for property insurance?
Yes. And as I said, see, insurance is a world on its own. Some organizations will take a lot of insurances to protect themselves. It depends on their risk tolerance. See, again, it starts and ends with risks.
Yep.
Okay. So in which phase is senior management most directly involved? See, Ahmed, you're thinking C.
Crisis management. Crisis management.
Correct. In which of the following organization is in FM involvement in emergency preparedness and business continuity probably restricted to implementing risk prevention and mitigation measures? Small manufacturing facility that has just opened and has no budget for risk management. That's eliminated because they're saying that they have no budget.
Yes.
Let us see. Large multinational with a multiple facilities and risk management officer. No, these people will be very elaborate. They will have continuity plans. They will have the budget. Growing organization that's aware of vulnerabilities but has not developed formal plans.
That's one.
Yes. The other one, large organization that has incorporated risk management in business strategy. That's not sure. They will have a much more elaborate risk management. Which of the following is an example of preventing technology risks?
Okay. Using cloud computing for offsite storage. C.
It's D.
All of these are risk management tools, but the answer is delta D, because you're talking about risk prevention. Okay, relocating a facility to an area with more staff, this is called risk avoidance. You are avoiding, you're relocating. Installing a backup generator, this is mitigation, that in case it happens, you will do this. Using cloud computing for out of storage, again, you are mitigating. The most correct one is restricting access through physical measures to IT equipment. You are preventing it. Which of the following statement best describes a business process analysis? So what's a business process analysis? Shows the effect of disruption to an essential business activity. This is business impact analysis, not process analysis. So because we are saying the effect of disruption. Gulam is saying is talking about describe a business process analysis. Okay. So this is correct, because a business process analysis, you are analyzing it. You're putting the input, output, regarded resources, and so on. What's the primary purpose of a business impact analysis? The key word that you have to watch on, the primary purpose, not what it does. Why do you do a business impact analysis?
A. Bravo, 45.
It's A, because the purpose for it is why you do a business impact, because it's part of your business continuity planning. So you are identifying requirements for resumption of essential process. You're looking at the business continuity. The risk matrix and similar tools are used to.
Sorry, this is not business continuity, business impact analysis.
It's part of business continuity planning. For you to continue your business. So the risk matrix, why do you, and similar tools are used to what? Guide insurance pricing? No. Develop evacuation plan?
No.
Prioritize resources, because we are saying that we are having these risks. Where should I put my focus on? And I should put it on the high risk, high probability items, and so on. Which of the following describes the role of the incident commander? No one?
A.
Alpha.
Yes, the incident commander is not the one who necessarily drafts the emergency response plan. The emergency response plan, for example, can be done by the risk management team in a head office. And it's not necessarily the most senior. As I said, a GM maybe has nothing to do with the fire. He doesn't know that. And dealing directly with the first responder, no, that's not his best role. The best role is the best equipped to handle this. A building technician reacts to an occupant's direction to shut off a ventilation system by first confirming this action with the facility manager. This is an example of, so a technician got an order to shut off a ventilation system.
Bravo, chain of command.
Unity of command.
True. Which of the following assembly area statement is correct?
A coordinator must be assigned to each assembly area. A.
Yes, because the rest are not needed. Are necessary only when occupancy exceeds. No, they are necessary. Areas should be equipped with computers. No need. The assembly area is the place where decision made. This is the incident command center. I think that was the last question. Do you have any questions?
Boss, I have one last more verification.
Okay, tell me, Arnold.
About the evacuation drill. You mentioned that it is about 1 year, at least 1 year. Here in Qatar, all I know is the instruction is at least 6 months, every 6 months. Where is that 1 year base? For what country? That 1 on those, or is it intended only for?
Remember, we're talking about a multinational organization, okay? And definitely you have to follow the legal requirements, but it's saying at least once. You can do it every week, okay? And you can do it as much as you want, but it's recommending the best practices are like that. Maybe they're not even applicable to some businesses. So there is no clear-cut rule and regulation, but if there's a regulation inside the country to maintain it, you have to comply to the legal requirements. Clear? Okay, any other question, or we can end the session?
Sir, what about the link, sir?
Which link?
For the video recording link?
You have to check with the administrative team, not with me. The guys who are the
yeah, already I spoke with him, sir, but they told to me who will be the coach, we can speak with.
No, I will talk to them. This is not related. This is something administrative. They will reply to you. I will talk to them about this. Okay, Ahmad, tell me.
Yes, actually, in the facility management, what I can see, for instance, is a factory or something like that. Is it the same duties like quality control engineer? Because I am thinking that there is a big relation between the facility management and quality control. So if, for instance, for every step, I make quality control for it, this means that I make a facility management or not like that?
Can you come again? I'm not understanding.
For the facility management, okay. For instance, yeah, is it I see similarity between the quality control engineer and the facility engineer, management engineer.
No.
That, for instance, in every step you make the quality, you are ensuring that everything is okay. So is it like that or not?
Quality is part of your job, and that's why there's a separate module on quality. Okay, it's part of this, but again, there's a module on risk. So quality is part of what you do.
Okay, so
whether you have a quality engineer or you can do it yourself, it depends on the organization again.
Okay.
All right. Okay, then. If we answer all these questions correctly, we will pass the IFMA examination. Yes, if you cover all the questions on the back side, not only these in the slides, Nur al-Din, if you go to the books and study all the questions in the back of the book, the exam will be very, very similar to them. All right. So if there is nothing else to add, I bid you farewell for the evening.
Just one question, Mr. Beha. One question, please. Do you recommend to study from these slides or from the textbook?
From the book.
You recommend to that? Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. These are. See, I'm cramming everything, whole book. I'm cramming it into 3 hours. Okay. There are some, I'm just highlighting the things. There are some information where you need to get it from the book. So it is the basis there.
Excuse me, sir. Can I ask something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where can we avail this book, sir? In the school?
Where can you what?
Where can we get this textbook?
There is a portal in which you can access all the books there.
Okay.
So talk to the guy who in the coordinator. He will give you access to it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ba.
Thank you and good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
That's a nice.
Bye.